Morning, everybody. I'm super excited to welcome Anthony Graziano from D&H Distributing. Anthony, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You have an amazing background, so it'll be great if you'd please take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and D&H.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony Graziano. I have the pleasure of leading marketing for D&H, a broadline distributor here in North America. I spent my entire adult life in the channel. I actually found it by accident. I was actually started as a temp in a telemarketing department at a competitive distributor trying to sell dot matrix printers. And I didn't leave for quite some time, so spent almost 20 years before I spent a couple years at Logitech on the global level running worldwide channel marketing, and now back to distribution here at D&H when I've been here just over 2 years.
That's amazing. There's so much to talk about, right? Because distribution is changing, marketing is changing, channel is changing, everything is changing. So I think we'll have a great conversation. So let's dial back a little bit. When you started, how did the channel look like?
The channel looked very different. Most of it was transactional. Lots of partners and vendors, sort of in that linear fashion, sell my stuff, move a box, and we'll pay you for moving that box. No, and I was going to say from a marketing perspective, it was really just around building awareness.
And going sort of, if you look back about a decade ago, things kind of started to change when SaaS came around, because predominantly before that, distribution was very hardware centric. So can you talk about that inflection point a little bit when SaaS started to come into distribution?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as we think about how the world is moving to everything as a service, partners, from an ecosystem perspective, there's so many ways that D&H was able to plug into the channel by way of not just selling hardware, by selling services and really working with managed service providers to deliver that value.
From a structure perspective, can you talk a little bit about like how distribution was in your mind, maybe a couple of decades ago or a decade ago, and how it is now? Like, what are the core components that are new, that has changed?
Yeah, I would say, again, vendors primarily use distribution for fulfillment, and we would fulfill to our resellers. I think our partners at that time looked at distribution as a warehouse and a bank, but today it's very different. We offer a variety of value-added services, and particularly for our vendors, we're building at that ecosystem level where it's less about transaction and it's more about the partner and the vendor's point of value that we're able to contribute. And how can you make that value reoccurring? I think if I could give an example to illustrate that is, working with a video collaboration partner, I may know them well, teamed up with a consulting organization that provides services specializing in return to work. They partnered up with a platform provider, a la like a Microsoft, Google, Zoom, which then built programs to the AV channel, which then they get incentivized by deploying small rooms across the globe. And then from a value perspective back to the partner, it's not just selling, but it's also helping them scale. So now they're able to deploy small rooms so they can have their resources focused on high complex integrations.
That's amazing. So I know D&H, you differentiate from the other broadliners from your portfolio perspective. Can you talk a little bit about, like, for example, AV as an example that you said, not other liners carry the way you carry and the focus you have. So maybe you can go through a little bit of the portfolio that you have today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we play in every single category, but we're super intentional about the brands and that we curate. So we don't have every vendor that's in the Pro AV lineup. We have the household brands and a couple of strategic value, either ISVs or other platform providers to really help build a solution that we can help our partners take to market.
That's terrific. And are there any basic category focus that you have from a strategy perspective that they have to meet? Certain, market segments, certain growth criteria, certain distribution reach? Like what are the ways you bring them in?
Well, there's a couple different ways. One, our partners are asking for it. So we want to make sure that we're able to have that on our line card. Also, if we are looking at what the market's doing, so when you think about what's going on with whether it's device refresh or whether it's AI or whether it's hybrid cloud, data center modernization, we've curated a portfolio that we know has the ability to service the business outcomes that are in the marketplace today. They have programs that are accretive for our partners so they can deliver that and help them with co-sell and co-market capabilities.
That's amazing. Does the portfolio change dramatically when you move from like one theater, like one geography to another, or they're roughly kind of the same?
It's roughly kind of the same.
Okay. And from a trend wise, there's a big push, of course, in the US and some part of Europe in building out data centers. And can you talk a little bit about like what you're seeing there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are looking at, if you think about what's going on from a technology perspective, it's like the biggest thing that's happened since the invention of the internet. So we are really excited about that, and we're making lots of investments, particularly in the data center. Our organization is really invested from advanced solutions perspective. So again, the portfolio, the technical expertise that we're bringing on. We're building out actually in our headquarters experience centers so partners can come in with their end customers, see use cases in action for AI. We have a cyber range going in so they can show and deliver, simulate, and working with our partners to make sure that they're protected and have the right scenarios to reduce risk. And then back to the AV statement I made earlier, we're building out different types of conference room, whether that be multi-room, huddle spaces, or different types of work return to office solutions that our partners can come in and touch and feel.
So let's take maybe just kind of listening to you for our audience. Let's see if we can put it into a matrix like a 3x3, and I'll let you pick any one of those intersections. So in, let's say in X dimension, you have SMB, mid-market, enterprise. And sort of the Y dimension, you have, traditional resellers, VARs, then you have managed service providers, then you have system integrators, right? If you look at, visualize this kind of 3x3, are there intersections that are moving very fast for you?
Yes, I would say our managed service provider channel, as well as our managed security solution providers. And there's a big trend where, SMBs are trying to get into those reoccurring revenue models. And we actually have programs from an enablement perspective that we help our partners go from an SMB to an MSP, and then we help augment them from a services perspective, get them trained and certified on the brands that that we believe based on their portfolio and the segment that they are serving.
That's amazing because it's one of the largest segment, and it's they don't have expertise SMB customers in house, so that is a natural fit. I have done interviews with Joe Levy from Sophos and several others that are kind of focused on that segment. So let's spend a few minutes if you're okay on that. So when you think about how managed services now been around for 20 years, right? And distribution were more of a support role before. What do you think has changed how you're engaging today in that segment with partners than you did about a decade ago, maybe?
I think it was more about selling them the widget. And today we are leaning in, building joint business plans, walking into different vendor relationships together. We're helping them look bigger than they are. Were we able to augment from whether it be our engineers, whether it be professional services that they can do in-house, but it's probably more cost effective for them to outsource to us, but knowing that they'll get the same experience that they receive and know that we have the capabilities to service their end customers as best as we can, like they would.
So if we stay in that sort of the SMB, MSP, MSSP intersection, right, and kind of follow the partner lifecycle all the way from recruit, onboard, enable, co-market, co-sell, sort of then co-keep and grow. Can you kind of walk us through where, your focus is from a distribution perspective, where you tend to engage? Are you recruiting partners? Are you mostly focused on the portfolio partners you have to enable? and co-market, co-sell? Where is the velocity?
Well, the velocity is spread. I do think for us, one of the things that I think we do very well is we have a partner journey aligned marketing strategy. So just what you said, we're making sure that we're recruiting, enabling, we're activating, we're accelerating. We meet the partner where they are and we plug in where the vendor where they want us to plug in. But we also challenge our vendors to make sure that that they are looking at a holistic go to market and strategy plan. Sometimes I feel like they want to go right to dessert and they want to do the incentive, but they haven't monetized their brand to the partner. They haven't built that co-sell and co-market capability yet. So making sure that we have the right, checklist, if you will, of here are the things, Mr. Vendor, that we know that you want to accomplish, and this is how we're going to map your plan. Recruitment is definitely something that I would say is probably the most velocity wise because most vendors come to us and say that they want to displace one of their competitors and it's helping them find new customers. So again, we make sure that if that's the case, that they're able to build a way of which we can get in front of the partner and we help them monetize that because essentially a brand is asking a partner to disrupt their current investment community and then making investments themselves in either co-marketing or co-selling resources and tools.
That's brilliant. So let's go back and focus on that recruitment as a program, right? So, and I want to go back where you started from in the beginning. You said, you started as a temp dialing for Epson. I don't know, there's a recruitment campaign or trying to get partners through a training. But, we started as an agency. We worked for companies like D&H. Mm-hmm. We did recruitment. And at that time, 15 years ago, you get a list, you get on a call, you call a partner, ask them to attend a webinar or a roadshow, and then you hand over the lead to the CAM to say, go recruit, right? So that's kind of how the process was. Where are you today? How do you recruit? How do you go after partners? Because everybody's inundated with calls and saturations. And how do you reach?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have our go-to-market is really wrapped around start with data, end with data. So I'm going to start with data here. So we have a vast data analytics practice where we are looking to make sure that we are finding the right ideal partner profile to make sure that once we call them, it's with the intent. So it's not that we're calling them out of the blue and they're a device partner and we're saying, hi, we would like you to buy more server and storage from us. It's going to be, we're going to find a data center partner. We may look at adjacent things that they're buying. We'll look at, where they're selling to their end customer. So the value, that we get to see as a distributor is 90% of what we ship gets drop shipped directly to an end user. So we have relationships with folks like Dun & Bradstreet and others that have Penn Data that we're able to make these very targeted, curated attack lists, if you will, based on intent.
And then how do the campaigns look like at that point? Once you know a target, ICP aligned with IPP, then what is the execution mechanism?
The execution mechanism, when we start with high value content delivery, that's personalized. We then build the right, pick up the phone and make a connection with someone in our sales organization. Again, another thing that's unique about D&H, that our sales organization, why we take inbound, 70+% of what they do is demand generation. So they've plugged in well with the marketing team on these types of campaigns. Then we put them in a nurture, right? We're sending them triggered email campaigns based on how they interact. They get served more personalized content. Then I think you mentioned about recruitment. Then based on how they interact, we're going to invite them to a webinar or a webcast. We host lots of marquee events in the marketplace. So we'll invite them to those to engage with them. And we also have a big industry event presence as well. So I like to, we want to go where the partner watering holes are. So then we make sure that if we're going to do an engagement there, like a boardroom session, we're making sure that we're able to plug those partners in as well.
So let's say, a partner who may be an existing partner or a new partner with D&H, and say, I want to pick up this new category in my portfolio, right? And talk to a rep and say, sign me up. What happens next?
What happens then? So what happens next is then we typically a vendor that they're looking to get involved with will typically have a branded program with us. So what we then do is there'll be an onboarding methodology that we use that's either mostly digital start to start. Hi, you've had interest. This is how you get started. Here's the playbook, if you will. Here's the team you're going to engage with. Here's the portal you need to go in and get registered to make sure that you're able to access all of the right content and resources. This is how to register a deal, how to build, build a quote or build a solution through a configurator of sorts. And then we have most of our brand teams will have an overlay team that overlays the sales organization that also comes into the picture to make sure that that the partner knows how to maximize their programs. And then the marketing team comes in, and then we make sure that they're set up with all of our tools and know where to access our content and other resources from a marketing standpoint to help them with their co-marketing.
Pretty cool. So, Anthony, I know you have launched the MKT+SHIFT program.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what that is?
Yes. So our MKT+SHIFT program is really where taking all of our great brands that are out there, they're all developing lots of content. They're putting them in their partner portals. But really, we find that an SMB doesn't have many resources. Sometimes they don't have the skill. They're selling more than just one brand. In today's now ecosystem, a lot of folks are selling multi solutions. So instead of them having to navigate 40 different places to go to get content, and candidly, 2018 called and they want their Drop Your Logo co-branded marketing kit back, we help them and we build agnostic content based on a business outcome that the partner first values there, and then they bring in the brands that they serve. A good example here in real action is we have the Windows 11 refresh. So instead of serving and our partners interacting with MKT+SHIFT with here's your device OEM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, here's the campaign. Here's how they can pull in the brands that maybe they're tier 2 from a program perspective, or they maybe even want to put in a new brand that they may not have sold before, and they want to give more choice to their end customers, and then they're able to deploy those versus having to, again, find single vendor content for each brand in their partner portals.
That is amazing. Can you talk to us a little bit? Why did you pick that name? What does MKT+SHIFT mean?
Meaning it's really shifting, right? It's shifting from marketing traditional way to now we're shifting our mindset to help them again shift into a new marketing shifting. The plus allows us it means and. So there's other things that we're able to do, and we have full service, and we're able to connect you with marketing subsidy, and we're able to help you generate leads. So that's where the name came from.
That's amazing. So, right before COVID, when customers were using our platform on the partner marketing side, the number one most requested application was event marketing, right? Mm-hmm. It's lunch and learn, wine and cheese, boot camp, Friday, whatever, right? So partner and MDF was flowing through. Then COVID happens, all events dry out, right? Then 3 months later, everybody's doing webinars, right? Then that starts dropping attendance wise because people are webinared out. Now it's all podcast, right? So on the buyer side, when an SDR calls, their connection rate is like 1%, 2% versus it used to be 10 or 12%, right? So the shift, using your word, that has happened on the end user level, the way the partners used to do the outreach, which is get butts in the seat or get somebody on a call to break into a new account or even an existing account. what mechanism you're seeing today in 2025 is gaining traction or losing traction as you sort of move forward?
Yeah, I think for me, what I'm seeing is it's really around the thought leadership. People want to plug into what they're interested in, and people's interests don't start at the widget or the product, right? It's either going to be at a business outcome level. How am I going to deploy AI and I'm a small business? Or how am I supposed to create, additional value for my customers in a highly competitive environment? So seeing where they're picking topics where they're the brand and the partner can provide that thought leadership and then create a community there. So ultimately they'll start buying some of their stuff from that point of view, but it's more so getting the connection by way of something that's interesting to them, not just the product.
So, Anthony, is there a specific example you can pick, like maybe a brand or a campaign that in recently worked very well around thought leadership, and then kind of walk us through the mechanics of it, how it was delivered, what kind of metrics you used to measure success?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think if I think about it again, I'll use some of the device manufacturers as an example with Windows 10 end of support. The communication, the social, the outreach was really all around security, how to prepare for breaches, why, tips on making sure that you are not a victim of phishing, and making sure that we're able to have those engagements that are gated, that they can come in and they can either raise their hand, I want more information about this, or we're able to serve them up more content based on clicking through those 10 ways not to get caught phishing, a phishing scam or what have you, and then looking at how those programs and communications interact with our partners. And again, they're interacting 4 times more when we're talking about something like that security example than just buy my new laptop because Windows 10 is going to sunset.
So I want to go back a little bit to your brand experience when you went to Logitech, because that's through a different lens. And when you look at the categories of product that Logitech, had or has, all the way it's commoditized, keyboards and mices to all the way, advanced communication devices, right? And sometimes these brands, they will have loss leaders that they will just pump in through distribution because you have to attain a velocity to grab wallet share from a partner, but then make the margins on newer stuff, right? What maybe around thought leadership driven categories. So when you went to Logitech, were there things that you carried from distribution that you sort of, realigned the approach? And now that you have come back to distribution, what perspectives have, you've sort of changed from go-to-market perspective?
Yeah. Well, when I went into Logitech coming from distribution, and it's no secret, distribution, we live on basis points. So going into a manufacturer and seeing how much dollars that we were spending on content was trying to, again, looking at where content's just not being used. You're creating it, it's not resonating with the partners. So bringing that value when I walked into Logitech so we could help reduce, spend where we didn't have to, or spend where those assets were never going to be used. Then coming back, because while I was at Logitech, return on investment is super critical. They want marketing to do more than just create awareness. We have to, what we talked about earlier, we have to recruit, we have to enable them, we have to incentivize them, we have to help build the co-sell and the co-market capabilities. Things go beyond vanity metrics today, so you can't cash a click through. So coming back, I've really built my organization, one, to make sure we're able to deliver a return on investment reporting for every campaign, and we measure that on the month. So what we're really proud of is that we built a multi-touch ROI system where I know my sales friends like to take credit for everything, but if marketing engages with a customer at the brand intersection campaign 3 or more times, we then can call that marketing influenced. And then we're able to show when it gets into pipeline, follows it through the sales cycle, and then bring it back. So we're making smarter decisions on campaigns, and we're looking at on a monthly basis versus on a quarter or a half.
This is a great context. I've been waiting to ask you these questions, but so let's get into it. Let's talk about QBRs with the brands, right? Traditionally, about a decade ago, it was a sellout report, right?
Yeah.
It was basically inventory, return margin, authorization. Well, it was very, very sort of, sales centric, right?
Yeah.
And marketing got like 5 minutes. What promos
at the end of it, if there's time, right? Yes,
right, yes. If there's time. And whatever leftover budget they had, they were like, okay, go run telemarketing campaign.
Yes.
So talk to us today. What does a QBR look like with an SVP of sales, distribution under coming in, sitting down in an exec room? Has the dynamics changed?
Yes, and I like that you asked the question, because I think something that I think is again unique about D&H, we have I would say it's a harmonized approach between product management, marketing, and the sales organization. So we operate on one plan, and we like to call it smarketing because we know how to pass the ball to each other. So in those settings, we're reviewing a plan. We're not reviewing the marketing plan, the sales plan. We are looking at the numbers, right? But it's less about reporting the news. It's more about what did we learn, and then how do we go forward. Marketing is still towards the end. Sometimes I usually try to push myself up. Could we be in the middle of the agenda? Or we typically now, when my leaders get in a room, they figured out how to just be wrapped in at the objective level. So they talk about an objective. What did sales do? How did marketing help influence? So that keeps a steady flow. So there doesn't need to be a marketing section. Though if you can imagine, with those larger brands, they're expecting some sort of NBR type conversation that happens post quarter.
So let's say in this QBR, let me try to kind of bring in kind of 3 dimensions, right? And because at an exec level, you have this purview that others don't typically have. First is I want to talk about sort of the tenureship that has on the brand side, the senior VPs changing every 18 months. So take that as a vector.
Yeah.
Then you take the 2 basic roles that distribution plays, demand creation and demand capture. Traditionally, most of the discussion has been, what have you sold for me lately? And here's some dollar, go create demand, right? Then you look at the third category, which you said basis point based discussion. From a distribution perspective, your margin are in the new stuff. Their margin are in the new stuff. But the new stuff creates, depends on demand creation for a multi-quarter basis. And this exec has pressure to meet the number this quarter, doesn't have time to talk about a campaign that will last for 3 quarters, right? How do you manage that conversation, Anthony?
So again, I think something unique about D&H, which I'm excited about, is that we are privately held, employee owned, and that allows us, when we work with our brands, to have mostly we're talking about 3-year plans, 1-year plan clip, 6-month reviews, quarterly outlooks. So we're not D&H, we're not in the 90-day shot clock. Now, some of our brands are mostly, right? So making sure that we're able to, while we have our core investment that we're getting from them, we're typically looking at a multi-year investment that we put on top of it, that we all are managing at the outcome level, which then allows us to have a more so of a two-way conversation. Yes, we have to talk about what's happening in the 90 days, but we also have an outlook of what's good. What's our outlook for the end of the year? Or what's the outlook? Or did we need to adjust targets at 6 months and continuously doing that? As you mentioned, there's lots of shift and changes in leadership. I think the good news is that they show up at another brand that we have, so we already have a relationship with them. So it just sort of again keeps it flowing.
Plus, traditionally distribution sort of has this residual knowledge about the product and organization really can help executives in transition. If a new person comes in, the level of your organization wrapping around the brand that has worked over the last several years know possibly a lot more than some of the frontline people would be able to tell to that individual. So now, from an engagement perspective, everyone sees huge value. I want to go back to my 3x3 matrix. So you covered one. So SMB, mid-market, enterprise in one axis. And on the y-axis, you have VARs, resellers, managed service providers, and system integrators, right? More and more service component. Can you pick another quadrant, another intersection that you think the action is today?
SMB. I mean, I think it's your SMB reseller. They're vast. And our technology community, while lots of folks focus on the top and maybe invest a disproportionate amount of their dollars and time there, we believe that long tail at scale is really driving lots of momentum in the marketplace.
So let's stay there because that's an incredible place to be. And I'm going to segue into AI. So, I mean, it is kind of clear with all the reports that are coming out from sort of Big Five consulting, adoption is happening first at a consumer level, as an individual level. Adoption is happening at a business at an individual level, whether the company is paying for a GPT or someone is buying it, but it's not, bleeding into workflow yet because they're very complex. And there is a theory now, unlike traditional tech, which has shown up in enterprise and came down to SMB, like security and storage and whatnot, AI adoption may go the other way around, from consumer to SMB to mid-market to enterprise, simply because you have to fight, workflows less and data may be cleaner. You have less data. So from your perspective, what are you seeing? Engagement with the partner? What level of excitement are they saying? Can you talk about some projects where you see velocity is building?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, again, you kind of already outlined it. I mean, we're at a part where we're seeing the reverse too. We're seeing more adoption in, SMB. Obviously, the larger the company, the larger the decision makers and influencers, right? There's much more data. There's much more complexity that they have to solve for. But we're finding that SMB focused on other small to medium business in their local area, looking at business outcomes or where it is. I mean, it's as simple as if you have your local pizzeria and you're putting AI, with a partner to see how much cheese and how much pepperoni, like the Lexmark Optra product that we're selling through SMB today, or customer service when people are coming up. How long is it going to take for somebody to greet that person in their car at the local auto body shops, etc.?
In fact, the last example is the example I wanted to bring up. Is Andreessen Horowitz made an investment into a customer success bot company that they completely pivoted, because 40% of automotive shops, they don't get oil changes done on time, and that's lost revenue because it's recurring revenue. And people don't schedule it simply because they just don't have time to call the shop to schedule an appointment, right? And so when I think about my friends here in Silicon Valley, because of SaaS, they all think we go direct, right? But you can't reach an auto body shop or a pizza shop or a barber. You can't, right? You have to go through your local. So what campaigns have you run or you're running? How are you approaching like these emerging high velocity sort of brands that are coming out in the AI space they would traditionally not consider distribution, right?
They wouldn't, but we're now able to take them on. So again, we know that it's not going to be, it's easier when it's not hardware, right? That we're not trying to fill our warehouses with it because of the cost, their cost of capital, etc. But we're working with lots of ISVs, particularly the brands are bringing them forward, like Intel and Lexmark with some of the Optra stuff that I mentioned that they're doing. But we're running these campaigns. We're partnering with those ISVs and we're setting them up. We have our platforms through our marketplace that they're able to use and transact through our advanced solutions team today. So yeah, I mean, I think and when it's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, I think everyone's just really getting started, but I do think the momentum, continues, and we're challenging our vendors through our programs and things that we're doing is let's distill all of the noise that's out there and how do we help somebody transact.
So I have two more questions. But I want to come back to one of the point you raised earlier that begin with data and end with data. And distribution has been, always data rich, but sometimes insight poor, right? Mm-hmm. So as kind of AI come into the picture, what is your approach from an organizational perspective, and what is your sort of personal vision that you think, where the opportunities are?
For sure, I think insights are what we need to do. We're investing in AI. I'm making lots of investments in my team with data science. Lots of smart people that know how to use AI and provide, different types of insight. What I've been amazed is the folks that are coming in, knowing and using these tools. They're not just reporting the news back and giving sort of the basic insights. They're giving sort of so much more based on what the data is telling them. AI is helping them based on the things that that are there. A good simple example is the other day I was working on an ROI campaign for a vendor, and I was with one of the analysts, and they came back and they gave me all the metrics I needed around net new customers, the reach, the yield, the frequency, and then they came through based on AI and our relationships with a third party provider that we're using for for data. We were able to say, well, wow. Also, they were showing me market share trends of what we were doing against our competitors in that same time period with the campaigns, because we had access for the AI to help us bring all of that together so somebody can help bring that forward to the business.
So that's amazing. So let's come back to the last question, which is about people, because at the end of the day, it's all about people, especially distribution, even though there's a lot of tech involved. You have had an amazing rise, career-wise. So when you look back, I have like a looking back and looking forward. As you think about building your own leadership team, the lessons that you have learned for yourself through the successes that you have had, right, or challenges that you had, what attributes that you think you're going to look forward to that are still necessary? And what are the skills you think in this age of AI that were not relevant or prevalent that are also going to be necessary?
I think curiosity. I think folks that are continuously demonstrate that they're a lifetime learner. I think when I think about people that have the ability to problem solve, I'm particularly as I'm building, my team, I'm looking for people way smarter than me that are able to connect with the market, give us different perspectives. And it's interesting when you think about when, marketing academic back when, the world has changed. None of what I learned back then is really relevant today, right? You almost have to reteach yourself. You have to continue to learn. So I think that to me is where I typically will plug in when I'm bringing on talent, understanding how they want to learn. Do they continue to learn? Do they feel like they know everything? If they feel like they know everything, they're probably not going to be a right fit for my group.
Well, with that amazing note, Anthony, I want to thank you for being here today. I got to have you back. There is so much happening, especially, in that SMB intersection, because based on everything I'm reading and you said, that seems like an exciting place that's going to change quite rapidly. But thank you.
Thanks for having me.